And Composer is what you will use to publish stories to your website. So back on the home screen of ARC, and I have now clicked Composer, and I can now see all of the stories that are available to me in ARC. And you will see thousands of stories available to you in this system. You will be able to see stories from all of the stations that are on the current ARC platform that you're on. And those at first will be all of the clickability stations. And eventually we'll get all of the ARC stations onto the same ARC stack so that you will be able to share content across all stations. So in this case, we are going to go ahead and start by creating a new story. So again, familiar green button here at the top that says create new story. I click create new story, and the templates available to me come up, and you will see your station in the production side of the platform, but not on the sandbox side. I'm just going to use KCRG as an example. And if you don't see your template available here, you go ahead and search your station here and it will pop up. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and choose the KCRG template, which is automatically going to give me a KCRG dateline and copyright. What you'll need to do first is add your story headline. The working headline is going to be the story headline. So I'm going to go ahead. I've got some text saved here that I'm going to go ahead and put in. So I'm putting in my working headline, and now I'm going to add my website. And this is again part of the new provisioning measures that you will have to learn, but I'm going to go over that in a little bit, but I will show you here how to add a website for your story. So you go ahead and click add website, and this should look familiar from the other tools that we've gone over, but I'm going to choose KCRG. And in this case, and in many cases, news is going to be what you use, but you may use sports, you may use News National or other sections that you have available. And you will see more sections available if you do have them on your website in production. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and choose news, and we can see that this is now going to be assigned to the news section. I can also add sports if I want to. And other sections here. Your primary section, you will always want to be the most specific. So in this case, let's add Eastern Iowa as well. I'm going to go ahead and choose my primary section as News Eastern Iowa. And that's important because the ads, if there are any ads specifically sold for that section or for that product, this will help determine which ads are served to that story. So we're going to go with News Eastern Iowa. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. You can ignore the planned ready time. You can ignore the will have. This is for planning purposes, but most don't use this, and you don't need to use this to move on to the next tab. You will also need to add an author, and you will have some homework to actually create your author page. I'm going to see if I'm in the system right now, and I don't think I am, so I'm just going to leave the author blank at this point. But if you could either click add me once your author page is created in production. This will not work in Sandbox, or you can start typing your name in here and you may see it in the drop down. But in this case, author is not important. Distributors down here are important for stations that have sharing agreements or other agreements where the content is only meant to be available to them and not the rest of the company. Most of you probably won't have to worry about this, but for instance, if a station has a sharing agreement with a local newspaper and the newspaper says, well, you know, you're only allowed to publish this content on your website, then you'll need to use a distributor down here that would be custom for you. And you would see WXXX, Tribune Chronicle newspaper. And once you choose that, that's going to hide this content from the rest of the company. So once you have your working headline in and your website created, your website selected, you go ahead and click save. And that will now put the beginning of the story into the system, and it will automatically move me from the planning tab here to the compose tab. You cannot move from the planning tab anywhere else until you have your working headline and your website and section chosen. So now we are in the compose tab, and this is where you will write your story and create your story and add any type of element that you need to put into your story. And if you remember that template that we chose when we first created the story, we can see that now we've got the Cedar Rapids, Iowa KCRG dateline and the copyright already here ready for us. I'm going to go ahead and grab some text that I had taken from this story, and I'm going to copy and then paste it in. And at times when you copy and paste, you may see some extra paragraphs in, and I'm just going to clean this up for a second and show you then how we move on. So this is how your story is going to look. This is a what you see is what you get type tool. You can enter a sub headline if you would like to. And then move down to the text. So you have lots of opportunity for different types of content items in your story. In order to create a new content item, you can go to the end of the text or the other content item and hit enter. And now we see we have several options here on the right hand side to use. You can enter a block quote, and the citation would be the person's name, Mr. Jones. And then click out of it, and we see that we have a block quote in our story. We can also add an image to the body of the story. So if I click image, it will open up Photo Center. And from there, I can upload an image, or I can choose an image myself that's already uploaded. I'm going to go ahead and click the plus button and click select. And now I have an image in the body of my story. And there's no limit to these. You can add as many as you'd like, wherever you'd like. Now, you can also make an image clickable. So if you have an image for a contest or something that you're running on your site and you want people to be able to click through to that contest page on your site, you can click edit info. You can change the caption if you need to that persisted from the original image. You can change the title. And here's where you would put your link. I'm just going to put google.com in here. So now that image is actually clickable, which is a pretty neat part of this system. I'm going to go ahead and go down and hit enter, and we're going to go to another content item. And now I'm going to add a gallery to my story. So if I click gallery, it's going to open Photo Center and my list of galleries. And we're going to select the gallery that we created a little bit earlier in Photo Center. I see that it's selected. I'm going to hit select, and now I have my gallery in my story. So as we scroll down here, I'm going to go ahead and now I can add a video to the body of the story. So if I click video, it's going to now open Video Center. And there, you will have to have your video uploaded in Video Center before adding it in a story, because you cannot upload a video directly from this window. So I'm going to go ahead and just choose this video that we used, that we clipped a little bit earlier, and I'm going to click select, and now I have my video saved in the body of my story. If I click edit info, I can change the title and the blurb for the video. You cannot make videos clickable like we did with our image, but you can change the title and the blurb, and this will not change the original title and blurb for the video that's already in Video Center, but it just changes the metadata for the video in your story. All right, so if we move on and look at other content items, we have HTML. So you can add HTML code in this area for any type of embed or something else that you'd like to embed into your story. You can do that by using this block, and it comes with a sample block. So when you click edit, you will need to get rid of this code and start fresh with your code. If you leave that code in there, it'll say sample HTML block, and you don't want that with your embed. All right, so moving along, we can also add an interstitial link. So we'll add just call this Google, and it will display as such. And we can add, oops, pardon me. So now I've put a content item in there that I don't want. This allows me to show you how to get rid of those content items. So you just click on it and hit delete, and it's gone. I hit enter, and now I've got my row of content items that I can add again. And here we can add a social URL. So let's actually go to facebook.com. And as soon as it loads, I will grab a link, and all we need is the link to any public Facebook post. I'm going to grab that link here and go back to our story. And it's telling me the social URL has no value because I didn't put one in, but now I'm going to put one in. I click update, and now I have a Facebook post embedded into my story. We can do the same thing with Twitter. So I'll go to social URL here, and we'll go to twitter.com. And as soon as it loads, I will grab a public URL. So again, all you need is the link here, and go back to edit info and add that in, click update, and now I have a tweet embedded into my story. And we can add more tweets and Facebook posts and YouTube links and so on and so forth into the story. So the next content item is a table. You can add a table to your story. You can add code, which in most cases you're going to use HTML and not the code button. You can also add a correction. So if, for instance, you need to correct or clarify some sort of information that you had published prior, you go ahead and choose clarification and say this is and click update, and now we'll see here that this clarification is highlighted a little bit and italicized. We can also add a pull quote, which is similar to a block quote. This is a pull quote. Smith. And we can certainly also add more text if you just hit enter and just start typing text. You can add a divider to your story. Here, this line here across the text, or you can add a link list. And link lists are only available right now to the clickability stations that are moving over to ARC. If you're a legacy Raycom station or a legacy ARC station and are seeing this and wondering why you don't have it, it's part of the new stack and you will eventually have it. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say this is the list name. I'm going to choose primary buttons, 2 columns, and I'm going to put a link title here. I'm going to put a URL in, short description, and I'm going to add an image. And in this case, you can, again, either upload an image into Photo Center or choose one that is already in Photo Center. So I'm going to choose that one and hit select. And I've got my credit in here, and I've got my information. I'm going to actually add one more link so we can see this is photo number, this is link number 2. Put a URL in here and just put Facebook. Description. I'm going to add another image here to make it stand out. And we'll just use this picture of this gentleman here and click select, update it, and now I see my link list. And so this is a way to highlight content in your stories that just aren't links. It allows you to add these clickable links and these images. So this might be a way for you to add more interesting images to your story. So we've gone through all of these content items, and you see how easy it is to add them and delete them from your stories. You can also grab those content items here on the right hand side of your screen. If you click that, you've got interstitial links, social, list, table, code, link list, so on and so forth. You can add a heading if you wanted to your story, and you just basically drag it and drop it where you want it to be. This is a heading. We can add another paragraph here if we wanted to. New paragraph. And you can just sort of drag and drop those items. You can also see your story's revision history. So each time it's saved, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit save here. Each time it's saved, it's going to timestamp and save the name of the person or the email of the person who edited the story. So we can see here our story was started at 1:18 p.m. and it's the last edit was 1:29 p.m. And this is effective if you have some trouble with the story, or you wonder how a story got changed and is being legally questioned, or for whatever reason. There's a paper trail here, and you can go back and see what edits were made to this story. So if I click on this 1:24 p.m., I will be able to see what's new and what's old at that time. And if I need to go back to that version of the story, I can go ahead and click restore this version, and it will take me back to that story, and I will lose all the changes that were made after 1:24 p.m. So we're going to go back. We're not going to make any changes here at this point. But I will also show you here at the top, there are other items that you can use. You can delete your story. You can print it to a printer. You can copy the whole story to your clipboard. You can clone the story, which means copy the story, and it would copy it right into the system. You can undo and redo your changes. You can find and replace. You can change your different block types here. You can also change your heading style. You can float items to the left, right, and to the center. So for instance, if you wanted your text to wrap around an image, you can do that by clicking the image and then clicking float and clicking left. Now, I can only see this in the previewed story itself. I won't be able to see this in Composer. So it's often difficult to figure out how well a floated display is going to be as you do it here in Composer, but you do have that available. You can also enter special characters. So just throw in a couple special characters here for good measure. And you can add a comment to a story. So if you're collaborating with someone on a story, I can go ahead and add a comment right here and say, you know, how does this paragraph look? I can comment, and then the person or people I'm collaborating with can go in and see my comment, take a look at it, and they can say, they can reply to it, and they can say, you know, this looks okay, but needs some work. And then we have all of these internal comments here in the story. And then you can also then delete the reply and delete the thread. I can also choose which headlines I want to be on which of my platforms. So if I go up to the headline, I see this view all button. And I can see that now my basic headline is the working headline that I entered earlier. I can place a new headline in here for mobile, or for tablet, or for web. So you do have a lot of capability here to really make your stories fit on your different platforms. I'm not going to make those changes, but you can also do the same for content items, content elements. So I can click channel, and when I'm on that content element, I can choose that it's going to be on, let's say that we just want that paragraph to be on mobile and tablet. I can go ahead and choose that here. Those are use cases that many stations don't take advantage of, but they are available to you. I can also move a full item over to the clipboard over here if I wanted to. I can go ahead and be in this paragraph here and click move to clipboard, and now all of a sudden I've got this paragraph moved over to the clipboard and it's gone from my story. I can add it back if I want to. I can just drag it and drop it here, and now it's back. But I do have it saved in the clipboard at that point too, so pretty effective here. And then I can also delete elements either again by just hitting delete here or hit delete here. And of course, you can change the format of your text by highlighting the text and hitting bold or italicizing or underlining or even changing the color. So you can definitely do a lot, or you can also click you can create a link here by clicking the link button and putting the web address in. So we will move to the meta tab. Let's say we are happy with our story, how it appears. We can actually preview that story by clicking the little eyeball up here. And we can see now how this story is going to display on the site. And as we scroll down, we see all of our content elements. We see our paragraphs. We see our social embeds. We see our pull quotes. We see our lists. So that's a nice way to see how your story is going to display before actually saving it. So now I'm going to move to the Meta tab. And the Meta tab is where you're going to enter your description. Descriptions are important and required for display on your website. If someone is looking at your story on a section page, the description is also considered a summary, and it would tell people a little bit more about what the story is. And this is also important for social media, especially Facebook. Facebook is going to pull in the article title, the description, and the image. I'm going to add the description. SEO keywords also required. And as we've been saying throughout this last hour, you need to think about words or phrases that people would use to search for your content. Proper names, proper nouns, locations, those are all important to put into your SEO keyword field. And so we have our meta filled in and we're happy with it. And I'm going to go ahead and click save here, and we will move to the featured media tab. The featured media tab is important because you have to have an image with a story. So that will display on web sections and also at the top of the story if you do not have a video assigned to the story. So you start by clicking media type and choosing image. Image will always be basic, the media key basic, and then you click add media. And again, we can either upload the image into Photo Center here or grab an image that's already in Photo Center. And so I'm just going to go ahead and grab this image and click select. And now we can see that we've got our image as our featured media in the system. Now, if you don't have, if there's not a focal point set for that image, you can do that here. You can also change the title and the caption at this point. Again, this will not overwrite the original image, but it will just change the caption and the title for your story. Now, it's always best practice too, if you are able at all to include video in your story, you want to do that probably first and foremost through featured media, although you can add to the story body as we did earlier. But featured media will put the image between your headline and your publish time and author and dateline. so prominently in the story. So to add video, you change your media type up here to video, and your image is going to stay unless you get rid of it. And you choose video, and video is always lead art. So once you have that chosen, click add media and it will open up Video Center. Again, you can't upload directly to Video Center from Composer. You need to have the video in Video Center already. So we're just going to use here this full weather video here. I'm going to click select, and now if we scroll down, we will see that we have our weather video assigned to the story. And I can change the title and the blurb here if I want to. So featured media, very important, very prominent in the story. An image is required and a video is preferred if you are at all able to assign a video. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And if I preview this story, we can now see that our video is prominently displayed between the headline and the rest of the story. So we'll go back to our story page. And at this point, if we're happy and we've proofread and everything's ready to go, we can go ahead and publish the story. Before you do anything else, again, you just want to make sure that you've got your primary website and section chosen and everything else looking like you want it to look. Now, if you don't have some of the required fields filled out, for instance, description, it will not let you publish the story. So when I click publish, it's going to give me a publish time, which is most of the time going to be now. The display time is something that you can change. Okay, I can change this to have a display time of last week if I want to. And display is important because display determines the order in which your content is displayed on your website. Meaning that if you have on your news page, the order those stories are displayed are tied directly to this display time. So the newer the display time, the higher up the story is on the page. The newer the display time, the higher up the story is on the page. So if you want to move a story on your news page or your sports page or another regional page, you would do that by going into the story, clicking update, and changing your display time. So if I want to have my display time for this one be, 6 hours ago, 5-6 hours ago, I can change the time here and click submit. And now we see that I've got a display time of 6:40 a.m. This will not change the publish time, nor do you want to change the publish time. But the display time is something that you would change for your own content. So I'm going to go back actually to now. And in order to do that, you just click this lightning bolt here and it takes you back to now and you click publish. And now we see that our story is successfully published and will be live on the site within a couple of minutes. In order to get the story on your homepage, the homepage is the only page that is managed differently than the display time use on your other pages. And we do that using something called a collection. And so while you're in your story and after you have published it, you go over to this button called WebSched Pitches and you click it. And then you click add to collection. And again, if you want your story to display on your homepage, you have to do this. So again, go to WebSched Pitches, add to collections. So now that I hit that, I see that I've got my collections up here, and these are all tests, but they will be named the same in production for you. But because we're in Sandbox, we only have a few stations in here, but I'm going to go ahead and just go to my test collection at this point. But if I want to add that story to this particular collection, you go over here to the right and click the plus button. Don't click the headline, but click the plus button. So if I click the plus button, the system tells me that the story and with the story idea, the ID has been added to this collection. Now, when the story goes into the collection, it will automatically go to the top. And perhaps this is a story that's not something that would overtake your top story at this point. So you now want to edit that collection to move the stories around. So in order to do that, that's when you click on the headline of the collection. And now I see all the stories that are assigned to my collection. And I see here that my newest story that we just published is at the top of the collection. But let's just say I want my Hayden Fry Memorial story to be at the top. I just drag and drop. And let's say I want my new story actually to be in position number 6. So I just drag and drop. Now we've got some unpublished stories in here, and these stories will not display on your site. So if you have any unpublished stories in your collection, they will not display. Now, if I want this Test Hayden Fry Memorial story to stay at the top for quite some time, and I know that other people will be adding stories to the collection, I can go ahead and click this pin. And now this story is going to stay there, and the new ones that come in will come in under this story. And in fact, you can pin several stories at the top if you don't want them to change. And then the new stories then would come in starting at position 5 and move the rest down. So at this point, I'm just going to leave this Hayden Fry story as the one that's pinned to the top and is the top story or hero on my site. When you make any changes to a collection, you'll always want to hit publish. If you don't hit publish, those changes will not display on your website. Again, if you don't hit publish, the changes won't display. So now I've got my homepage collection the way I wanted it to be. And again, this is going to be the way that you manage your homepage moving forward. And it's pretty easy to drag and drop and to pin content to the top. So I click done. I'm back to Composer, and I can go ahead and now look at my story list, and I will see my new story here right at the top of the list, published and ready to go. You can find your stories or other stories by using the search tab here at the top. You can search by created date, last updated, published date, display date. You can search different websites, and this is where provisioning comes into play. You will have access to all of the Digital Content Center content that eventually will be published to your site. For the first 20-25 stations, the Digital Content Center will not be publishing stories into ARC. You will have to copy and paste, but that's only going to last a couple of weeks. And once we get to a breaking point here with more stories on, with more stations on ARC and less on clickability, the Digital Content Center will start publishing directly into ARC. So you'll need a little patience, but it'll go pretty quickly. But once they start publishing, you'll be able to choose different websites and look at their content. So for instance, if I went to the DCC site, I would see all of the stories that they have published into the system available to me. I'm going to go to KYOU because I know there's some content there. And I will show you now how to provision a story for your website. And you can do that a couple of different ways. And I'll show you the way that is not necessarily preferred first, since we're in Composer right here. I will go to test forecast article. I'll click on it. I'll click on it, and I can go into anyone's article. So you have to be careful if you're going into someone else's article that you don't change anything, or you don't go into a DCC article and change anything. You can also, if you are in an article, you can tie that article up for someone else's use to, if they need to go in and edit it. They will see a little lock button here on the story. So you can see here, I'm in this test forecast article. This tells me that it's locked. It tells me that someone is in the story. And if you hover over the lock button, you see the name of the person that's in there. If you have the appropriate privileges, you can actually go into that story and kick them out. Or you can go into that story and knock, and that will tell them that Joe Smith wants access to the article. So if they want to give you access, they can go ahead and save their changes and get out of the story and let you take over. So it's a great security feature to know that you cannot go in and have two people editing the same story at the same time and overwrite each other. So that's what this lock button is, and that's how you would use it if you needed to knock to get in. And I can't show you the knock right now because I'm the only user, and it isn't going to tell me that I'm the same person in the story. However, if you do go into the story to assign to your site, you can go ahead and do that by clicking the planning button. And now if we remember, we can edit our websites and sections, and this is where you would add your website. So if you click edit websites and sections, and let's say I'm at KCRG, I want to add this story to my news section. I can go ahead and do that by choosing my station in the news section. Now I see that it's published to 2 different stations, and I click save, and I see the provisioning happening right here. Now, the last thing I need to do is update the story before those changes occur. So now if I click update, you do not want to change any of these times for other people's content. The only reason you would go into someone else's story is to add your website or add a specific section. So again, when you click up the update, don't change publish time, don't change display time, but just simply hit update. That's not going to change the story. It's not going to change any of the information or this time. It's just simply going to add it to your website. And now any change that takes place by the originating station will persist to your site. You will not need to worry about making any changes to the stories. All those will come automatically. Same thing goes for Digital Content Center stories or stories from any other website on the Gray Arc stack, and eventually any other website in the company. Again, so you can find those stories just by scrolling through the websites over here. And if you leave the sections blank, then you will not be limiting yourself to just news stories or just weather stories. You can see them all. You can search that up here. You can look for stories within a period of time. You can look for stories by author name or headline text. And the last thing we'll talk about here is the source. So there will be 2 different sources that you can use. You will have access to AP content, which is under the source of ARC. AP content is under the source of ARC. Right now, we're not seeing any stories because we're not feeding content into Composer on the Sandbox side, but you will be able to see that in the production side. Or Composer, which would be stories that are published in Composer, and you can also just show only published here. So there are lots of ways to find content for your use. Now, you can also assign stories to your homepage using a different method where you would not go into a story and perhaps lock somebody out of their own story. And that is through collections. So collections is housed in WebSched. We got to it earlier through Composer by clicking the pitch to WebSched, and it took us directly to it. But I'm now going to take you to WebSched. And this is WebSched, and this is a very nice and effective way to find content, video, stories, and galleries you can find using WebSched. And you can use that using various search filters here on the left-hand side. You can also manage your collections in WebSched. In this example, I'll just show you, let's say we want to assign this particular story to our homepage, and I'm not at KCRG. So over here, I can preview the story and make sure the story is up to my standards for my website. I can look at the metadata on the right-hand side, see when it was published, see when it was pitched, see the story length, creation time, so on and so forth. And I can pitch to a collection. So in this case, I'm at KYOU, and I like this story and I want this story on my homepage. I click the pitch button and then I click add to collection. And now the collections will come up and we will go to the KYOU homepage. And I'm going to click the plus button, and it's not found here in Sandbox, but if we were in production, it would work. And then I would go into my collection, and let's just say this Kirksville story was the one I added, but I didn't want it to be in the hero or top story position in my collection. Again, I would just go and drag it down a little bit and hit publish. And now my home page has been updated. So you can add content to your site in two different ways. One, using WebSCED and the collections, and that's just for the home page. Again, collections just for home page. Or you can use your story list in Composer and find the story that way. Click on it, go into planning. Again, don't edit anything else. Go into planning, click edit websites and sections, find your website. In this case, we'll use KYOU again. And we'll assign to our news section. We see that here. We click save, we click update. Again, do not touch publish time or display time, and click update. All right, so we're back. Hopefully Composer worked well for you. I have found it to be the most interesting and most fun tool on the ARC side. It certainly allows us to do a whole lot more than we could originally do for our sites. Okay, so a couple more things and we'll be finished. You do have a breaking news bar or banner on your website, okay? It's going to display here at the top. We can see here we've got weather alerts. Those are automatic. And then you've got a breaking news banner that you can use that lasts up to 60 minutes. And in order to assign a story to your legacy news bar, you would go into the story itself and you would click planning and you would edit websites and sections. And we will go to KCRG in this case. And we would add to the news breaking bar. And again, if this story is newer than 59 minutes old, it will display, but you'll want to make sure you have an update in there so it displays for an hour. Now you also have sorry about that. You also have what's called an alert bar, and that's this yellow bar here. So again, we see the breaking news bar, we see an alert bar, we see the weather alerts. The alert bar is yellow, and it will stay up as long as you have a story assigned to the /news/alert bar section. So this would be used for things that you would like to keep up there longer. For instance, if you have technical difficulties or a specific section that you want to highlight, on your site, but these bars will display on your site as long as you want them to, the yellow alert bar. And you do that the same as you would do any other assignment. Go into the story, go to the planning tab, click edit websites and sections, find your website, and then you would use the /news/alert bar section. Again, you'd click save, then you'd click update, and you would then click update without changing any of the other information in the story unless you wanted to. So now some homework. You will need to create your own author page in production. Again, if you do it in Sandbox, it's not going to copy over and persist to the production environment. So this would be the only thing at this point that we would want you to do in production. And I've got some instructions in the master training document that I have in the chat. You will be able to find how to update your author page and make sure that you've got it into production.